not taking any chances. You're just what the start.
I'm beginning to feel like a cat god. Cat god. The Trinity gives my units thick buds who think that these pods are too soft to smack ya. Smack god. They say I play like a robot, so call me catbot. Boom! Here is the deck. It is a multi-tribe aggro aggressive deck which can make use of the Trinity to help crush your opponents very quickly. Originally, I got this deck concept from Tarako on Twitter. Saw his build and kind of swooped that. Played it a lot last season to a lot of success, especially against the slower decks that take a while to set up or control the game. So I think it's prime for that. And I made some changes for this upcoming meta, and I really like it because it's a nice balanced deck. It's not too fragile in terms of aggro decks where like you die to one removal spell, but it's also got a little bit of disruption in there, so you can keep your opponent on your toes and things don't get too out of hand before you can deal the killing below. I think it's a nice balanced deck. It's got a lot of aggressive beater units that aren't too fragile, so you know, if your opponent removes your like one threat, it's not GG's immediately. So I like that, and it's also got some disruption ways to keep your opponent on their toes before you close out the game. You have some ways to deal with opposing threats, and it's also nice because you've got a few different ways to utilize Shield Spire, and that can open up different paths to victory for you. So a nice balanced deck. Hope you all enjoy it. Alright, first we are talking about counters and disruption. It's about 1/3 of the deck, but it's not, how do you say, traditional like damage or removal like you might expect. It's things like your shields, things that give favorable trades but can also be used as like counter spells. So shields, of course, counter direct damage, damage actions, but it can also be used preemptively to get favorable trades. You've also got your seals, you've got disarms, you've got tatsikis, and you've got Karns. Those are going to help keep your opponent off their main threat, off of pesky units that can steal the game from you or just be too much when they get going. And Karin is especially important because of the ascend factor. It means you can seal unreactable on any lane, even if you have a unit already there. That can help so much. You have no idea. So then you've also got the beast attacks. These guys are buffing your attack, which is great. Again, like shields, they let you make favorable trades, but they also act as a counter to murderous spikes, which is pretty popular, I think, right now, especially with all the black decks going around. And it can act as a counter to that. So they murderous spikes, you buff the attack, and then the murderous spikes fizzles, and they still take the 3 damage. Pretty good. But it's definitely useful for that. And just helping diversify your threats as well, so your opponent has to choose which is the bigger problem, the lesser of two evils, right? And then you've also got Doll's Memories, very similar to Beast Attack, but it has the minus HP, and it's very important because we're not like spamming actions, so unless the game goes long, you won't hit that memory 7, but that minus 4 HP is actually going to give green a removal spell in Doll's Memory. So this is actually more of like a kill spell than anything. You do have to be careful of the opponent having cards that buff HP and then they just get free at 4 attack and you're like, ah. But it's very useful, and I use it more as a removal than a buff. But you know, in clutch situations, you can definitely buff up your attack with it. And then follow it up with Shield Spire maybe to replenish your HP. And then finally we've got Evasive Action, which just resets a unit's stats. It's going to bring it back down to normal levels. If they've got a card that kind of buffed itself up, the classic target is on Nero, which we do play in this deck, but it just reverts it to a 1/0 and you feel bad. But you can do that to opponent Neros too, so you know, we take it. Another big part of the deck is the MP boosters. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. You build MP faster, you get an MP advantage, and then you turn it into aggression and you crush your opponent with it. I mean, the Felyne's got MP boost 20 and Lair has MP boost 30. I also have Grimalkine in this MP section because he gives you like a free 3 MP monster straight from the deck, and you can actually grab Felines like 50% of the time with this, so it kind of works out. And just generating that extra field can let you gain more advantage at least in board state, over your opponent and close out games just the tiniest bit quicker. Alright, we're here for the beaters, the aggro, the heavy punchers. We got Yankiku first, 3 MP, agility does wonders. Your opponent has to deal with this. Luckily for your opponent, it's not too hard to deal with, only being a 2-5, but the agility 2-5 can really get out of hand, as you can see by cards like Valstrax, which is basically the same as Yankiku, just has flight. So your opponent has to get a blocker in the way of this guy. We've also got another 3 MP, the Bamboo Pandemonium. He's just 4-8 stats, which is pretty nasty. He actually has the same DPS output as Yankiku, because he has twice as much attack. But I tend to use this guy more for trades. The MP boost minus is something you can counteract with your other MP boosters. But you know, I typically use it like he trades with a Devil Joe. So if your opponent like Ouroboros is a Devil Joe or just plays one, and then you can just slap Bamboo Pandemonium in its way. They're gonna trade. You might lose a little bit of MP from the boost decrease, but you spent 3, they spent 8. Having a good time. We've also got Rainy Turtloy, the 410 beefy boy. When you ascend with him, also has a spillover. A spillover is actually so clutch, giving you that little bit of extra value to keep the board in your favor. But come on, he's just a 410 for 4, and it's nasty. It also, the ascend is very important as well. Can't forget that. It allows you to convert your MP boosters into damage dealers when the time is right, or just get those sneaky value trades your opponent might not be expecting. Also, in the 4 MP heavy hitters, you've also got Nero, who's typically a 4-8. It's so easy to hit that 4-8 in this deck, and it feels good. You can even go for the perfect setup, which is like a Felyne, a layer, and Nero in the middle, which makes him a 5-9. Oh, so good. 5-9 with the spillover. He's going to be clearing out units left and right, and it's going to be hard to block because a lot of the 3-cost blockers got that 5 HP, so he's taking them out in one go. So he's absolutely fantastic. And our last beat stick is going to be Heavenly Kicks Chun-Li. Combo, agility, what more could you ask for? This card just hits insane. He's just like a Yankiku on steroids with the combo. You do have some attack boosts, so if you get those on her, oh, it's just, you're closing out games so quickly. But even without any boosts, she does the job herself. Your opponent needs to take care of her immediately. Talking about Mulligan strats, the plan is simple, guys. We're looking for MP boosters. You basically just want MP boosters, start racking up the MP advantage, and then working with what you've got from there typically works out. When you get used to more matchups, you might be looking for, oh, I know I need a seal for this matchup, because if they have, you know, in the last meta it was V, you want to be able to seal V. If they have Valstrax, you want to be able to seal Valstrax so you don't have any anti-air in the deck. So you'll get used to certain things for you want to look out for certain matchups. But in general, you want MP booster. If you get MP booster times 2 or MP booster plus a beater, that's like very, very good. I think that's usually what I'm going for. But at the minimum, you probably want an MP booster. In general, your game plan is to be aggressive. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. Because if you're making the first plays, then your attack lines don't get to the opponent quicker, but they get there earlier than if you play them later, and that gives your opponent less time to set up and respond. So you don't really want to be playing passively. There's a lot of times where I open up the game immediately with a unit, whether it's an MP booster or like a Yankiku. That happens pretty frequently, I would say. And the only times I think you should play passive, start building up MPs, either if you've got a full board and you're just waiting your opponent to kind of play their removal, get rid of something so you can replace it, or because you're saving it for like a combo play, so maybe playing Felyne plus Nero to get the full boost and prevent your opponent from interrupting that, or maybe something like the Grimalkine and then immediately ascending into Rainy Turtleoids. Like those things can kind of work out, and I would say those are combo plays that are worth saving up MP for, so keep that in mind. General strategy out of the way, let's talk about my top 5 tips. Number 1, be mindful of your synergies. Like I just said, if you have Felyne plus Nero, you might want to save up for them and avoid that from getting interrupted. Trinity can also win you games so easily. The +4/+4 if you just have Felyne plus Nero, but you need to be careful because if your opponent has ways to remove your creatures, they might be able to kill a key part of that. And so if they kill the Felyne, it's only +2/+2, and that's a huge 6 MP commitment for just a +2/+2. Not really where you want to be. So keep that in mind with the Trinity and the Felynes. They're very good, but they can be disrupted because they are so synergy based. Number 2, spread out your threats. So what I personally like to do is I like to have 1 MP booster on the field and 1 of my beaters, my beat sticks. Because then your opponent has to figure out, do I want to kill the beat stick and stop dying, or do I want to kill the MP booster? And so if they kill the MP booster, then I'm happy because I'm getting more face damage and I can try to close out this game pretty quickly. But if they kill the beater, then I can just use that extra MP to keep playing more threats and keep it going. I'd say it's a little bit better if they kill your beater, but it depends on the hand, right? You want to always keep up the aggression, and sometimes having 2 MP boosters, while it's great for getting a ton of MP, it's just not applying enough pressure to close out the game quickly enough. Tip number 3, check your opponent's MP. You don't have to be tracking it all the time, but I'd say every time an action gets played, just kind of peep that MP bar of your opponents and see where they're at, because if they're at low MP, you know that you can play something without them being able to respond to it well. This is especially true if they play like a big unit or something, or a big action. Then you can just follow up immediately and be like, okay, I know you're out of MP, and let me just bop before you can respond. You can get a lot of extra damage in there and put people on the back feet. Tip number 4, don't overcommit. I mean, it's very easy to. I think I do it a lot. I get very tempted. I'm just like, I gotta use my MP. I gotta play things. But if you do, you open yourself up to field wipes like Cruel Game, which can just take away all that advantage that you just got. And you might open yourself up to removal. So even if you have a full board, even if you're like, oh man, if I play this, attack buff, if I play this beast attack, it'll make me win the game even faster. And then it opens you up to getting extra outvalued with removal. That can feel bad, and that can really change the tides of the game out of your favor and into your opponent. So just be mindful of that, and don't go too crazy. Tip number 5. This last tip is to not be afraid to race. It's okay to just give up a lane and go hard in the other lanes and try to close it out before your opponent can. Because there are some threats, you just can't deal with in this deck. Like, you've got seals, you've got attack resets, but sometimes that is not enough, or you don't draw them at the right time when you need them. And so, for example, an opponent's resonate unit might get out of hand before you can seal it, and that's when you need to start looking into racing and really only playing units in the same lane as just chump fodder so you don't die. Alright, that's been the deck guide. Hope you all enjoyed. This deck's been pretty awesome. Like, it's just fun to play. I think it's pretty strong, especially last season. It's the deck that got me up to 2K. It's a little weaker this season, if I'm being honest, just because the meta has changed. There's not as many like slow decks that are taking their time to set up. It's mostly still quick, fast, aggressive decks. But it's still doing well. It's still fun, and we're making some changes to the deck, keeping it working. So it's been fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. You enjoy the deck, try it out, let me know how it goes. And until next time, keep on learning, having some fun with me here on the Durian channel. I'll see you in another video. Peace.